Welcome on into the offseason, everybody. This is a very pivotal next few episodes in our St. Louis Dragons franchise here on Madden 24 as we try to figure out the future of this football team coming off our inaugural season in which we won 4 games as an expansion team. We've got a lot of guys up for new contracts. We're going to be going through our first free agency today, and we're going to be making the necessary decisions leading up to the draft, which will be the focus over the next 2 episodes. We have not yet gone through the Super Bowl because I had to tweak some XP sliders and whatnot, but the XP sliders are now where I want them, so now we can simulate forward, and as you can see, the Kansas City Chiefs have annihilated the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs go back-to-back, and Mahomes wins ring number 3. So let's start the offseason with retirements. There are some big names here. Bobby Wagner, Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Rodgers, after just 1 year with the Jets, calls it a career. Calais Campbell, Brandon Graham, Tyrod Taylor retires from the Dragons. So obviously we don't really know who our starting quarterback is going to be next year, but we do now know it will not be Tyrod Taylor. Pete Carroll also retires, which means the Seattle Seahawks need a new coach. The Seahawks only won 5 games last year. They do have some intriguing talent on their roster, and they're going to hire Dan Quinn from the Dallas Cowboys, who had the best defense in the NFL this past season. Quinn was a head coach for a little while in Atlanta. He was there when they choked the 28-3 lead. Some of the other coaching changes include the Buccaneers, who obviously had the worst record in the league. They fired Todd Bowles, which really is no major surprise. They had the number 1 pick, which many presume will be Ohio State quarterback Puma Whitlock, and they're going to hire Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from the Lions. This adds more fuel to the fire of the idea of Puma Whitlock going number 1, because I think him in a Ben Johnson offense would be pretty fun. Ron Rivera, fired by the Commanders. Again, no surprise. They also have a very high pick, 3rd overall in this year's draft. They don't appear to have a franchise quarterback with Sam Howell, so they're going to go out and hire Mike LaFleur from the Los Angeles Rams. LaFleur's name has risen rapidly over the last year or so in coaching discussions. He was fired as the Jets offensive coordinator last year, but he had a great season with the Rams working under Sean McVay. Mike Vrabel, fired from the Titans. This is a little bit of a surprise, even though Tennessee only won 5 games. Vrabel is a really good coach. It appears the Titans are going all in on Will Levis next year, and they're going to hire Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. Callahan has worked side by side with Zach Taylor over the last few years running the Cincinnati offense. I think Tennessee just wanted a new type of coach in there. And then Frank Reich being fired is by far the biggest surprise of the coaching cycle because the Panthers had a pretty good year winning 8 games. Bryce Young seemed pretty comfortable working under Frank Reich, but they can him after 1 year, and they're going to be hiring in-house, going with defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. I think the reason behind this is that it was reported that the Seahawks were looking to hire Ejiro Evero, and the Panthers did not want to lose him so much that they were willing to fire Frank Reich just to make sure that they can keep him and promote him to the head coach. Bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off. So that'll now bring us into the re-signings phase, which is a pretty big deal for us. There is a new mock draft up, and I don't really want to talk about the draft much today, but it is worth noting that they had the Buccaneers passing on Puma Whitlock number 1 for Notre Dame pass rusher Solomani Somaro, which would mean Puma Whitlock falls to the 2nd overall pick. Again, we'll really be diving into this over the next couple of episodes, but I did find that very interesting. So let's now go through the player re-sign phase of the offseason. A lot of the better players we got in the expansion draft were left unprotected because they were on expiring contracts and their teams did not want to pay them. That list is obviously headlined by Devin White, who's been wanting to be paid as one of the best off-ball linebackers in the NFL. The Buccaneers were not willing to do that. But after the season he just had, he's going to be getting that money, and he's going to be getting that money from us. I think building around Devin White in the long term on this defense is the best possible move for us. We're going to give him a 5-year deal for $75 million annually, which he does accept. He's not the highest paid off-ball linebacker, but he's one of. That's $15 a year for a non-premium position. But after the season he had, I think it's well-deserved. He's the only reason why we didn't have maybe the worst defense in NFL history. Jeff Okudah's coming off a strong year. He completed a breakout challenge to move his development trade up. We're going to look to sign him to a 3-year, $30 million deal, which he says no to. So as of now, Jeff Okudah not under contract this year. The other corner, Rock Ya-Sin, we're going to sign for 1 year, $8 million. He says yes. Let's go to the offensive side of the ball now. I think bringing back DeAndre Swift on a short deal would make sense. We're going to give him 2 years for around 17 total. He says no. Darnell Savage was one of our duds of the year, but I think using him in a different role would be productive. We're going to give him a very short 2-year deal. Deontay Foreman, I would like to bring back for 1 year. He says no. Greg Dortch, I thought was a strong big play threat for us. 2 years, $10 million total. He is back. Gritty Williams, I thought showed some good things. He's a solid depth piece. 2 years, $8 million total. He is back. We saw some good flashes from Denzel Mims. He returns for 2 years. Javon Kinlaw started the year really strong. Then he got hurt, and he wasn't really the same. So I think on a 1-year prove-it deal, bringing him back would make a lot of sense. Tyquan Lewis, solid early down defensive end, is back for 1 year. Sean Tucker really showed us some good things. We're going to extend him for 3 years at only $1.5 a year. That's $4.5 million total. Cameron Fleming's a good depth piece on the offensive line. He says no. And then last but not least, the kicker, Cameron Dicker, is back for 3 more years. So we were able to bring back a lot of guys, and we spent well over half of our cap space just in re-signings. There are still multiple good players who are not under contract. DeAndre Swift and Jeff Okudah being at the top of the list, and I think franchise tagging one of these guys is smart. Of the two, I think prioritizing Jeff Okudah is probably the smarter route. Okudah's going to be a hot commodity on the open market, and I'd rather it not come to that. So he will be franchise tagged, while DeAndre Swift will be a free agent. We'll reassess what we want to do with Swift once we get into free agency, which of course is where we are now. The team rating drops quite a bit to a 74, but we'll have an opportunity to pick it back up here in free agency. We don't exactly have a ton of money. After the Jeff Okudah franchise tag, we only have around $36 million to spend, but we can always restructure contracts, which will give us more financial flexibility in the short term if needed, which, spoiler alert, we're probably going to need. I anticipate we will spend more than $36 million in free agency. So let's take a look at the class, and I was not really expecting that good of a group, and to be honest, I was kind of wrong. I think we have a pretty good free agency class headlined by arguably the best defensive player in the NFL, Nick Bosa. The Niners are currently working on restructuring contracts to bring him back, but for now, he is on the open market. He would cost about all of our money for what it's worth. Josh Allen, the pass rusher from the Jaguars, is here as well, and there's a lot of good receivers. Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, and Hollywood Brown headline the list. I think it would be in our best interest to go after a really good player, but none of them want to come here, which isn't really a surprise other than DeAndre Swift, which he was already on our team to begin with. So after thinking about it a little bit and going through some of these top free agents, I really think making a splash is not the worst idea in the world. The problem, though, is that big-time players are not going to want to play here. So what we're going to have to do is overpay significantly. And I think bringing in a guy like Josh Allen could make a lot of sense. We're not going to realistically have enough for Nick Bosa. He's never going to want to play here, so just get that idea out your head now. Josh Allen, though, could make more sense. Josh Allen is a very high-character football player, team captain with the Jaguars. I think he can be a culture setter for us going forward. And not to mention, he's a damn good player. 12.5 sacks this past year. He would instantly be the best player on our team. And we're going to have to give him a lot of money. But you know what? I think it's worth it. There are some good offensive playmakers in here, but I think shoring up our defense is going to be more important because the defense was worse last year. Allen is asking for around 4 years and a little bit shy of $60 million total, but if we want him, we're going to have to overpay significantly. We're going to offer him a 4-year deal for just under $80 million, currently with the highest offer, with the Rams being the other bid. I like our chances to get him. Money talks, and I think that might be hard for Josh Allen to pass up. There are some other players here in free agency I would like to target. We let Josh Metellus walk because I think we can upgrade. And Jordan Whitehead is a really strong player. We're going to give him a 1-year deal for $8 million. He's not receiving many other offers, so I think adding him would be wise. There are some more players who I'd like to go after, but we don't exactly have the money to do it. So we're going to restructure Emmanuel Ogba's contract, freeing up a little bit over $6 million in cap space, and we're going to look at Isaiah Wynn. The offensive line was a disaster last year. We need solid, proven vets, and I think Isaiah Wynn on a 1-year deal for around $12 million is pretty fair, and it gets him a lot of money. I also would like to bring back DeAndre Swift if possible. He doesn't really have much offers. Actually, he doesn't have any right now. So I think we can lowball him a little bit because A, he's not getting much interest, and B, this is all the money that we have. So these are going to be our 4 offers for stage 1. Josh Allen, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Whitehead, and Isaiah Wynn. I don't necessarily expect to get all of these guys, so I think we're probably going to end up with more flexibility as we go into stage 2. We have $35 million now, which is a bad sign. Josh Allen did not sign with us. He ends up signing with the division rival Rams instead for significantly less money. He would rather play with the Rams for 4 years and the $56 million asking price instead of 4 years and just under $80 million. So that kind of proves that even overpaying is not going to work with some guys. It's not even like Josh Allen really wanted to play with the Rams either. Look at his motivation. It's all the way in the red. It's just that he really did not want to play with us. The only player we ended up signing was Jordan Whitehead, while Isaiah Wynn and DeAndre Swift are both here, and Swift got a big offer from Washington, so we're going to have to overpay. 1 year for $11 million. I hope it's enough because otherwise our backfield is not going to be very good. So with Josh Allen now off the board, we do have some extra money to spend, which is the one good part about this. So we're going to look at Andrew Norwell first and foremost. Again, I want more proven good players on the offensive line. And then I think adding James Houston would be a good addition as well. He gives him some more juice as a pass rusher. He's nowhere near the complete player that Josh Allen is, but he can be a guy who comes in on passing downs to give our pass rush some energy. And then Rudy Ford is a pretty good special teamer who I think would be a positive impact for us. So again, that's really all the money that we can spend. Upping the offer on Swift while going after some new players as well. Hopefully we get a little bit more lucky. Before we simulate the week, there's a new mock draft. And again, Puma Whitlock does not go number 1. It's still Solomane Samaro. The Buccaneers do not have a quarterback on their roster, which is the strange part about this. But now that it's happened in 2 mock drafts in a row, clearly there's something here. When there's smoke, there's fire. So again, I don't want to talk about this too much, but it is worth monitoring. We are now in stage 3 of the offseason, and everybody signed with us, thank God. This includes DeAndre Swift, who got a lucrative contract offer from Washington, but he has decided to stick around with us instead, which I appreciate. So now that we've signed pretty much everybody that we want, we don't really have much money. We somehow magically made $3 million appear in thin air. I don't know how we did that, but we're not going to spend it because I think we've done all we need to in free agency to prepare ourselves for the draft. We have a deep roster as is with 60 players under contract, not even including our draft picks yet, so there's no reason to try to go after more free agents. I simulated to the final week of free agency, new mock draft, same stuff at the top. They still have Puma Whitlock falling to the 2nd pick in the draft, which still would blow my mind, but again, we'll dive deeper into that in the next episode. Before we go through the free agency recap, I want to go through trades around the league. We will not be making any trades because, again, I'm happy with where we're at here with free agency. We didn't necessarily splurge the big bucks, but we improved the offensive line and we brought a lot of guys who were pretty good last year back. Pretty much 90% of the league is broke, so there aren't many trades that are going to happen, but there were a few that ultimately went through. So let's start with one of the 2 teams who currently has positive money, that being the Chicago Bears. They're kind of on their last legs with Justin Fields, and they want to give him another weapon, so they'll be acquiring Deontay Johnson from the Steelers along with a future 5th in exchange for the 70th pick in this year's draft. In what is probably the biggest trade of the offseason, DeForest Buckner is going to the New England Patriots for a 2nd and a future 4th. New England adds a big-time piece on their defense. A team who we're going to talk about a lot in just a minute because of how they spent in free agency is the Titans. They had a huge free agency, but they're not done. They're acquiring Hassan Reddick from the Eagles in exchange for Treylon Burks and a 3rd rounder. The Eagles think 3 steps ahead. They drafted Nolan Smith last year to eventually replace Hassan Reddick, who's coming off a down 2023. They're getting pretty good value in Treylon Burks, who the Titans do not need because, as you'll see in a minute, they splurged at wide receiver, along with a 3rd round pick. So let's take a look at the free agency recap around the league and see some of the moves that some of the other teams have made. The biggest fish was Nick Bosa. He returns to the Niners on a very similar contract to what he got in real life. San Francisco restructured just about everybody they could. They're not going to have much money in the future, but they still have Nick Bosa. So let's talk about the Tennessee Titans, because the offseason they had was utterly ridiculous. Along with trading for Hassan Reddick, they had a massive free agency. They are going all in on Will Levis and their new head coach, Brian Callahan. So they significantly improved the offensive playmakers, signing Amari Cooper, Marquise Brown, and Gerald Everett. They turned their offensive line from a weakness to a strength. After 1 year away from the team, Taylor Lewan is back. They also signed Mitch Morse and John Runyan. Their defense is already pretty good as is, but they added Adrian Amos, and obviously they traded for Hassan Reddick as well. The Titans are going to be really good next year, especially on offense, with a loaded group of skill position players, a good offensive line, and a good head coach. No reason for Will Levis not to succeed. The Lions were the next biggest spenders, with their big fish being Mike Williams, who I think is a perfect fit for that offense. That big-bodied receiver is really the one thing that the Lions are currently missing. They also signed KJ Osborne for no reason. I didn't get that signing, but they added Cesar Ruiz, and they filled some holes on defense, adding Michael Pierce, Denzel Perryman, Marcus Peters, along with Kenneth Murray. The Lions are going all in on their current core, and they should be the favorites in the division next year. The Texans were the other super big spenders. They added Austin Eckler to pair with Dameon Pierce. They also signed Odell Beckham, who already has an existing relationship with CJ Stroud. Eric Armstead reunites with his former defensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans. And on defense, they also had Frankie Louvu, Josie Jewell, and Levi Wallace. And they also got Damian Lewis on the offensive line. This Texans team is no longer going to be bad. Players around the league are clearly buying into the DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud tandem, and honestly, I would too. The Texans have a very bright future now. As for some of the other moves around the league, we obviously know about Josh Allen. There weren't many other super big free agents who didn't sign with the teams that we talked about. I do want to talk about the quarterback market, because that was objectively hilarious. The highest rated quarterback here was Kirk Cousins. He has decided to sign with the Washington Commanders. It's a reunion. Kirk Cousins and Washington did not separate on good terms, but the poison within the Washington organization is gone. New coaching staff, new ownership, new players, new everything. Kirk Cousins is now the expected starting quarterback for the Commanders. That was not the only QB reunion, though. Baker Mayfield back with the Rams. Remember when he was there for a few weeks a couple years ago? So he will back up Matthew Stafford, but if you thought that was the funniest QB reunion, you'd be wrong. Sam Darnold is now the new starting quarterback of the New York Jets. You cannot make this stuff up. The Jets presumably would go after a quarterback during the draft, but they don't have their first-round pick because Aaron Rodgers played enough snaps. As of now, it's Sam Darnold who will be under center for the Jets next year. But that's not the only QB reunion. Teddy Bridgewater, back in Minnesota where he started his career, and as of now, he is the highest-rated quarterback on their team. And along with those four guys, Matt Barkley is also back on the Eagles. Remember when he was like a super elite prospect? That was funny. He returns to Philadelphia where he got drafted. So that'll wrap up free agency. Probably the most hilarious free agency I've ever seen. This game is just one big troll. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode nonetheless. Let me know what you thought of the Dragons moves down below in the comments. Next episode will be the draft preview. We'll talk about all the possible scenarios with our number 2 overall pick. The number of scenarios has grown with the realistic possibility of Puma Whitlock now falling to the 2nd overall pick. And we're also going to go over a lot of the players in the draft. Some guys we've already talked about, others we have not. I hope you guys enjoyed though nonetheless. Again, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Peace out.